Hi, welcome to this CodeRage 9 session covering new features in VCL applications development and how to modernize your VCL applications taking advantage of the latest XE7 features. I'm Marco Cantu, the Delphi and RAD Studio product manager at Embarcadero Technologies. This is my contact information. You can reach me by over email, Twitter, and the URL of my blog. So what's this session? The idea here is to discuss modernization of applications, understanding why it matters, looking at what's new in the VCL, and also covering features like styling, operating system integration, and some of the new features that are available either directly in the VCL or indirectly through runtime library, database, and other areas. We'll also go through some of the porting and migration issues and opportunities that you have if you are sitting on old VCL applications mainly meant for Windows XP or older versions of Windows. So why would we want to actually modernize an application? Why does this matter? Well, it does matter because the Microsoft user interface has been changing over time. Windows 7 is different from older versions, but even more, Windows 8 and from what we can understand, the future Windows 10 are really focused on a slightly different UI approach, mostly based on what Microsoft called Modern UI, or originally was called Metro. That is creating slightly bigger elements because of the higher resolution monitors, changing the style, using colors in a different way. And honestly, if you're running a very old non-themed application on Windows 7, it looks a bit odd, but on Windows 8 and 10 would look even worse and kind of out of date. Now, the great point is that to bring your applications to what we can say the future or the current and future version of Windows, there isn't like a full rewrite to do with a new language, new tools. Mostly you're ready. You just need to clean them up a bit, potentially add Unicode support, add styling, provide proper styling support, and take advantage of the change to clean up the applications a little bit more, but there's not a rewrite. It's just a very generally smooth migration in terms of UI and styling. You might have a couple of roadblocks around Unicode and around 64-bit migration, but mostly the experiences of our customers moving over have been quite smooth. Now, another relevant piece of information is that Windows 10 is actually more desktop-centric than older version of Windows are, and certainly it's not as strange looking or upsetting, at least for a few customers, like Windows 8 has been, although I honestly have to say that I tend to like Windows 8. But Windows 10 is different. Desktop is, again, the central metaphor, and so VCL applications actually are pretty smooth in running on Windows 10. That doesn't mean that there is nothing to do. There is, as I was mentioning, styling. There are details like TaskBar button management. There are important features that you have to make sure you support to be a good citizen of the new operating system. And having said that, let me actually show you a VCL app running on Windows 10. This is Windows 10. As you can see from the new system menu, and it's running Windows RT applications within Windows. It's running a VCL application that's properly styled, and this is just the desktop. This is fully integrated, and actually it's a demo of the jump list. So you can actually have information that's dragged and added and integrated automatically into the system. Again, full integration, styling, a rather nice look and feel that merges with the operating system style. Of course, this is not perfect, but that was meant for Windows 8. Honestly, it runs fine and provides a rather smooth view in Windows 10 as well. So the first actual feature I want to focus on is styling. Styling is a way to update the look and feel of your application to make it more modern. Styling is based on the theme support that was added way back and allows you, rather just to have a theme or look and feel that comes from the operating system, to have a completely custom look and feel that you can add to your application. Now, there is one specific extra feature in styling in XE7, that is the support for a tablet style with larger elements and touch-enabled style. But the other thing that was added in XE6 was the ability to style menus along with borders and all of the other elements of an application. This is an application that supports styling, and to add styling support, all you have to do is to go to the project options, appearance, and pick some of the styles that you want to embed in the application. The alternative option is just to ship those files along with your program and load them dynamically from external files. Now, there is a mechanism for actually getting from the style manager the list of available styles, and likewise there is a mechanism to change the active style by name. So by combining these two, I've created this simple application that starts using the standard Windows look and feel, but you can load styles and change the UI of the various elements. And you can really make it dramatically different, going with dark colors, or just change and go for really alternative display. Again, everything is styled, even the system menu is properly styled, and everything works quite smoothly. But as you can see, you can obtain a modern and very flexible look and feel for what is still a good old standard applications based on core VCL controls. Before we get into more technology, there are a couple of more things I wanted to point out. First is that Windows XP is really, even if slowly, going away. This is some recent data of the different desktop operating system distributions. So Windows 7 is king. Windows 8 is not making much inroads, although it has become significant. Windows XP is still out there, but decreasing month after month. So it will, and Vista is kind of negligible. So that's one, shouldn't really bother you. So targeting Windows 7 and Windows 8 becomes a reasonable business perspective, although maybe not for the pure consumer market. So as I was showing with this data, Windows XP is going away. Windows 7 installation are mostly 64-bit. That's another element to consider. You might want, alongside a migration and styling and other features, move your applications to be a native 64-bit app. You won't gain much speed, but you will certainly gain from the ability to address a huge memory address space. Unicode enabling the application is relevant if you don't want to be stuck to one single country, one single language and alphabet. And it's kind of compulsory these days, honestly. Database technologies you are using might not be from this century, but might be from last century. And in that case, I would really recommend considering moving. There are specific sessions on moving database data from the BDE, so I'm not going to focus on that too much in this session. User account control compliance is quite embarrassing to see applications out there that still don't get it right, but we might spend a second to mention a couple of issues. And the other thing I wanted to point out is you might want to take advantage of multi-core using plain threading or the new parallel library that we have introduced in XE7. Again, why do we want to do it? Because our customers are moving. Customers are moving away from XP, have moved to Windows 7. Most of the corporations have. And what you can do is actually go back to those customers and not just say, yes, my application runs, but say, yes, my application runs. Now you want to get like a nicer, smoother, more modern application. And with a limited investment of time and money, you can actually move to and take advantage of some of the newest features that Delphi provides. Again, in other application scenarios with other vendors, you have basically to trash your application and restart developing from scratch. We provide an extremely smooth migration from older version of our product to the recent ones, with advantages, with database access advantages, extra components, extra features. There are hundreds of new components if you're moving from a single-digit version of Delphi. I mean, 100 new components for the VCL side of things, not considering even mobile and other great technologies that we are shipping. So, again, what's new in the VCL? There are a couple of features that have been added in XE6 and XE7 around taskbar buttons. One is the taskbar component that offers preview and offers progress and the ability to also add button controls within the preview window. This is a simple video player application with a taskbar button. And this is where you customize and change all of the features from the progress status to the actual extra buttons that you can add to the application. In this case, there are 2 buttons for playing and pausing the flow. What this application has is also a timer, and on the timer event, it will update the progress status. So if I turn on, well, let's do it this way. If I run this application, I click to select a video, and I start playing it, notice what happens to the taskbar button. First, I have these commands here for pausing and playing, and second, there is a progress indicator that basically tells me which is the position I am into the display. And this keeps going in the background and give me this extra information. So it's a very powerful and sophisticated component, very easy to use. Just set a few properties and you have full integration with the system. The other demo that I wanted to show you, this is a little more complex, is the jump list demo. Again, a new component, this time introduced in XE7. You can both create custom jump categories, and here I have one, dropped files, and you can have custom elements added directly to the jump list, and there are just some simple. So how you actually write the code, you can just grab a category and an item, a jump item to the category, and then you can customize its display. Now I'm doing this when I drag and drop a file to the form by supporting native API drag and drop capabilities. And so what happens is that these items get added to the jump list. So let's get here, let's go to Explorer, let's grab a file, let's move it over. And this is both added to the list, but also added to the jump list. So if we right click, we have these new items added, plus the standard one. Now what happens when you select one of these items? It's not that some information is sent to the program, but as you can see here, because I have higher security, and this comes from shared folder, we actually run another instance of the application. Now, what happens is that the instance is executed, and then I close it immediately by pass the information to the running instance. So there is some code behind this demo in terms of managing Windows processes, looking for the existing form, activating the form. Again, it's quite some low-level Windows API code to basically pass back the proper information from the from the running application to the one that's already running. So again, if you could look at this code here, I'm creating a mutex the first time, and if the object is already there because some other another instance is already running, I just use the existing instance and activate it. If it's the first time, I just go ahead and create my new form. Again, the code behind the scenes is a little tricky because the jump lists do execute another instance. That's great if you have a file management system where each file has its own instance. But if you are more into a single application that handles multiple information, multiple files with tabs or some other user interface mechanism, that you have to implement single execution architecture for your code. So again, the taskbar preview we've seen earlier and the jump list that we have just looked into, it's the complementary, because one is just the menu for the taskbar and the other is just for the taskbar itself and the preview and the extra information you can put in your taskbar buttons. Another area that you can really benefit from is the inclusion of sensor components, orientation, location, and motion. Although, honestly, not all computers would have the required hardware to handle those. So these are mostly meant for Intel tablet running Windows, like the Microsoft Surface 3 Pro tablet, that do have these sensors and have them enabled for applications to more or less like it happens on an iPad or Android device. There is Bluetooth support in XE7, both classic Bluetooth and Bluetooth LE, although this is not strictly a VCL technology. That's something you can slowly benefit to integrate your application with others through App Tethering, or to integrate with low energy Bluetooth devices through the new Bluetooth LE component. And so you can have your Windows VCL applications that interact with external sources of information and small data nuggets, like most of the Bluetooth LE devices are. I mean, it could be watches, could be healthcare, fitness devices, and anything in that space. There are other features that are not so recent in the VCL that you might have missed, from the ability to use a Direct2D canvas inside a form to replace the traditional GDI canvas, Windows imaging component support in T-image for further type formats, ability to provide extra features for button edits, progress bars, and other core components, task dialogues, support for gestures, support for touch. So there is really a lot that's been in the product for a few versions now, but honestly, I still find that a lot of the RAD Studio developers don't really know much about these capabilities. So let me spend very little time focusing on a few of these VCL features. One is the support for canvas rather than the traditional canvas. So there is a class called T-Direct2D Canvas you can use to replace the canvas when the form is created. Now, the nice thing about this canvas is that it has extensive features in terms of gradients, in terms of rotation, metric support, and this lets you build applications that very simply in their own paint provide a rather smooth effect that would be not terribly easy to achieve with T-Canvas and GDI, good old GDI technologies. So the code is quite straightforward, and the effect is certainly significant for VCL application. Another demo I wanted to show you is the use of the task dialog component. Again, this works from Windows Vista, or honestly Windows 7 onwards. The task dialog is a ready-to-use component to have complex scenarios. For example, in this case, I built a progress task with a task dialog with a progress bar. This is quite nice because suppose you have to do a lengthy operation. I'm going to show you the output and then we'll look at the code. Rather than the classic progress bar displayed in the application itself, what you can do is have the same progress bar within a dialog with cancel button, with extra information and status. So that's actually quite smooth, and the code will be similar because like here I have code that actually goes through a timer to do the background processing, and on the timer event handler I just keep computing. So similarly, what I had to do here for the task dialog is to hook what is basically a timer to the task dialog. The task dialog has a specific on-timer event, and you can hook to it to write the proper code, which in this case is similar to the previous one. The last of these three simple features I wanted to show is the new edit controls. Controls now allow things like right alignment, hints, numeric only edit boxes just by setting the corresponding property, numbers only true, and custom password chars when you provide the actual element that you want to use for in place of the password. Again, let me show this running, text on the light, a text hint that goes away, that comes back when there's no focus, and empty, numeric only char, and this is a custom password token. Nothing special, very simple things, but they were not, if you're still on an older version of the product, your VCL components won't have these capabilities. So having said this, having focused on new features of the VCL and some not so recent features you might have missed, let's focus a little bit on porting and migration and some of the challenges around it. Of course, Unicode is a challenge and an issue for existing applications, but that's the way forward. We only support Unicode on mobile, and the world has moved to it. Even Windows is cutting out some of the pre-Unicode support going forward, and Microsoft is intention to reduce the support for older technologies in the operating system and in their development tools as well. So let me do a short demo on the good side of Unicode. We do have extensive migration white papers and documentation available. This is just a very short highlight of what Unicode can be used for, and honestly, that's what you can do. This is from the unicode.org website, the sentence "What is Unicode?" in different languages that are based on different alphabet, as you can see. And this is just loaded inside a string list. How do you save it to file? Well, you can just do save to file and load from file from your list box, either by setting a default encoding, in this case would be UTF-16 or Unicode, or just passing the encoding as parameter to the save to file function. So there are ways to handle loading and saving Unicode files that are actually extremely smooth and well integrated into the scenario. Not to mention the fact that you have not just an encoding class, but a full hierarchy of encoding classes with different formats and different mechanisms for reading and writing from code. So T-encoding is a fundamental class for Unicode support, but in many cases features are just integrated into the library in very smooth way that basically will have will automatically do what they are expected in this new world. So like all Windows API functions are automatically remapped to the Unicode version, the wide string version of the corresponding Windows API. FireDAC migration is another extremely important topic. FireDAC is a library that will bring a lot of fun and powerful capabilities into database development. I would really recommend migrating from old Paradox DBase data, also because we are really moving BDE off the product. The XE7 was the first version that doesn't ship with the BDE in the box, although it's available as a separate download for now. The other notable related feature is that IB Lite, the the version of Interbase that comes for desktop development and has only a couple of limitations, no support for encryption and limit in the file size. IB Lite, I was saying, is now free in XE7, so you can migrate your application data and your application components from the Paradox DBase BDE to IB Lite FireDAC or any other combination of data access and data storage technologies. There was one specific session on that topic, so I don't really want to focus too much on it, but I really recommend to try to avoid using some of these old technologies in your current applications. When you're moving to 64-bit version of Windows and moving to new version of Windows, you will see hiccups if you keep using some of these older technologies. Of course, the full power of FireDAC comes in client server. The number of features that FireDAC has is really worth migrating from not just the BDE, but even DB Express or other, or DBGo, Access, or other third-party components you might be using. Visual live bindings is also a feature that was introduced mostly for FireMonkey development where there are no data-aware controls, but also allows you to take advantage of mapping objects to visual controls, mapping objects' data to visual controls in ways that data awareness doesn't fully support. A good example is the mapping of data to a list view. So this demo has a list view object, and the list view object uses visual live binding at design time from a prototype bind source. This is a design time temporary source of data of different information. And then the idea is that at runtime, you replace this prototype data with the actual data. Now, the goal of this demo is to use visual live bindings, and we can see from the designer how things are arranged. The various fields of this prototype bind source are mapped to the various sub-items and the header, the group header, and the element of the list view component. And so what happens at runtime is that I actually do have an object, and the object has some data which matches the names, and then I create t-object list of this class type, and then there is this mapping of the data using bind source adapter. So the bind source adapter that I'm passing to the prototype, so this is the actual data, is a list of person summary object that I'm creating. I use the list of object as data source in the application. Very powerful. Run the application, you have the actual data displayed in the list view. Another great technology that you can leverage is App Tethering. App Tethering is extremely powerful. It was introduced in XE6 and has been expanded in XE7 to cover Bluetooth and some more Wi-Fi scenarios. It can be used to easily expand your existing Windows applications to mobile devices, and it's actually a great reason to migrate your applications because these additional mobile companion apps can really become a big reason for your customers to buy an upgraded version of your application, so something that you'll directly benefit from. You can very easily provide new features in terms of mobile enablement through companion apps that will, for example, be used as a remote control or be able to leverage the device capabilities like the camera, barcode, recognition, or any other mobile feature, and use that feature to provide input to the good old VCL application running on Windows. I really recommend looking at some of the demos we have, like the photo wall demo that's part of the XE7 samples. User access control is probably worth a lot of time. There are still applications that don't treat the applications folders as read-only, try to write on them, or don't save documents and settings where the Windows operating system expect them. I fully encourage you to take all of the effort that's required to make your application UAC enabled and aware, or you'll always get into some small troubles. Despite the effort from Windows to be compatible in that area, you really need to make sure that your applications are up to date. Notice, by the way, that the behavior that applications have in terms of user access control really depends on if the applications are or are not styled. So if they are old or new applications. For non-styled, non-themed applications, Windows provides some extra backwards compatibility tricks that actually end up being worse than the scenario, because your files saved to program files, saved to the current folder, are actually saved on some virtual storage that's hard for your customers to find out. A couple of more things I wanted to mention is the fact we have a new REST client components library that's very nice and smooth. It has actually plenty of features that would take a full session to demonstrate. JSON formatting, JSON parsing, prototyping capabilities, authentication. Another feature we have added in XE7 is the parallel programming library, and you've probably seen demos of how this can be used to leverage multi-core CPUs. Here I'm going to combine these two features of a new version of my RSS feed Delphi feeds client demo by combining the REST client library with task execution in the background. Now notice that what I'm going to do is to create a multi-threaded application, although indirectly through task, but I still want to leverage the visual capabilities of the software. So what I'm doing is actually creating a data module with all of the components needed for processing, and then I'll create an instance of that data module from within the task. So what I have here, this is the data module. It has an XML document component, and it has a REST request client that refers to the main URL, delphifeeds.com, and a request that provides the specific path, Delphi Feeds. And then a REST response, which is where the information will show up. Now I have an XML document based on the new OmniXML engine. And what I do in code here, when I do process the request, is basically execute the REST request, grab the response, and populate the XML document, and then go through the document to parse it and get the right information. Now, when I need to send information back to the main form, I need to make sure, given this will be executed in a thread, that I call synchronize, passing in an anonymous method for the user interface update. So all user interface updates will be in sync and not step onto each other if done for multiple threads. Now there is also another function here, which is kind of the main a class function that will create the data module, do the process, and free it. So this is what the main form would actually do when there is an update. Very simple. Whenever I press the button and create a new task, the task does the feed processing from the data module. This is how the task is defined. And then after creating the task, I need to start the task. Now I can start multiple tasks concurrently. Everything is completely smooth. when there is new information, this is added to the only this box through this method. This is the method that's called back into the synchronized anonymous method. So let me run this demo, and I can click update, wait a bit and get on my result, but I can also click update a few times in a row, and all the information will be added in some sort of random order into the list. And notice how I also use styling to make it look nicer in today's world. So that's the last demo I wanted to show you. Again, Windows desktop applications are here to stay. Despite the enormous growth on mobile, most businesses still rely on Windows as the core operating system for running their business apps. Embrace mobile and extend your applications to mobile rather than do a full replacement, which in some cases might make sense, but only in some limited scenarios. Support Windows tablets with the VCL. The Surface 3 is a good VCL target, as much as Windows 10 will be a great platform for VCL applications going forward. And that's all I wanted to say. So let's open up for questions here at CodeRage 9. Thanks.
So the first question is, will your demo code be available for download?
Yeah, I actually realized I didn't upload it. It will show up on code.marcocantu.com as a Subversion repository that I'm creating specific areas for the various sessions in CodeRage 9. It should be there in a minute. It's actually physically uploading while we speak.
Okay. I should put the URL in here. For REST clients library, do you support server-to-server OAuth 2 without the user consent screen?
No, I don't think we handle that scenario out of the box. Of course, it's something that could be considered, but I think we only go through the web browser-based login model.
I think you're right. It does do the web browser. I was going to say we do have OAuth 2, but yeah, it does do the web browser.
Yeah, open authentication has like 10 different not 10, like 7 different variations and combinations. So it's a little tricky to handle all of the possible scenarios, and then not all servers, not all providers are support all cases. But we certainly do cover the basics, but not all of the options.
Yeah. You mentioned that some pre-Unicode strings are going to be deprecated in Windows 8. Does that also apply to UTF-8?
No, I don't think UTF-8 is going away any form. Although in terms of Windows APIs, there is very little in terms of UTF-8 support. Windows API has traditionally, that's both the Win32 and the Win64 APIs. They have either support for ASCII or support for Unicode or wide strings, as they were originally called. So that's why all of the API functions either terminate with, that have string input or output, either terminate with the uppercase A for ANSI or uppercase W for wide. We in the Delphi world hide that difference by providing an alias for either one or the other, depending. It was the A until 2007, and then the function moved to the W version, the wide version. But in terms of APIs, I think there is very limited UTF-8 support.
And will Delphi eventually drop ANSI string support as well?
I don't see dropping the ANSI string support on the current compiler on the Windows platforms. We have dropped the ANSI string support on the mobile compilers since we started going to mobile, because although we've had a lot of complaints and I can understand many of them, actually even the concept of ANSI, for example, makes very little sense on mobile devices because they don't have that concept. It's a specific, very old-fashioned model, and even Windows has its own quirks. For example, when you consider the first 256 characters, actually Windows doesn't support the ISO standard for Western European alphabet, but it has its own extensions and variations that actually cause a lot of trouble. Those extension and variation, for example, don't exist on different operating systems that follow the standards more closely. So it's really a can of worms. And honestly, the sooner we can get away from that and go to full Unicode, the better. Now, the UTF-8 is Unicode, and is 1 byte. Actually, it's not 1 byte. It's variable length, number of bytes. It has some advantages in terms of compactness, but also has a lot of drawbacks, because when you have something to display, you have 20 elements in input, you don't know how many bytes you need for the storage. So it's a bit tricky to work with, honestly. It is supported on all platforms in terms of conversion, so you have the TUTF-8 encoding that's available anywhere.
So is support to cover Japanese kanji and katakana?
I honestly know very little about this, so I can't really comment.
Okay. And can we use FireDAC SAP SQL Anywhere database? We are currently using ADO components in Delphi 7 to connect to that database.
It's certainly possible through ODBC. I think it's also possible through a direct driver for that database.
It seems like I remember that was on the list too, but there's so many of them on the list I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, it was formerly known as Sybase, now SAP database.
Yep, Sybase SQL Anywhere. Here's a DocWiki article on it. Paste the link.
And I saw this other comment from Jim about ANSI string being critical for TCP/IP communication protocol. Yes, we know in a few scenarios, actually what ANSI string means in that context is mostly using bytes for communication. And for example, now the T bytes data structure is first-class citizen in the language across all platforms. T bytes is just a dynamic array of bytes, which of course you can easily map to 1 byte characters with some extra code, either again the conversion function from UTF-8 mapping or ANSI mapping or the various encoding functions, or by writing your own code. Now T bytes becoming even nicer, because as you'll see in the next section, now you can even do string concatenation and insert and delete operations on any dynamic array, including the dynamic arrays of bytes.
Just looking at my clock, trying to figure out where we're at in the schedule here. All right.
It's 44.
All right. For some reason, it feels like I'm an hour off. I'm not sure what's going on here. My watch. No, wait. My printout must be wrong. I'm going to freak myself out here. Oh, yeah. All right. I figured out what I'm doing. All right, never mind. So, Jim says most of the TCP communications I deal with, like fixed financial exchange format, is readable text, not just raw byte data. ANSI string makes that much easier to work with.
No, I do understand that there are scenarios where ANSI string makes sense. We don't have a current plan to get rid of ANSI strings on desktop for sure. It's again, it's a platform, will remain likely a platform-specific feature for some time to go. Now, in case we move to an LLVM-based compiler on Windows, that's not something around the corner for sure. There might be possible change, but that's not something that's coming or that we are expecting or considering. And again, still, it's just a view of the data. So mapping T bytes to ANSI and vice versa is actually quite straightforward, and we do provide classes for that. As an example, I can actually mention that there is a recent update of the Async Professional, the communication library, that's really moves a lot of ANSI bytes or ANSI characters around. That is being updated to work even on mobile, or to work on various platforms using Unicode-enabled versions of the compiler.
So here's a link for more information about the katakana, it's apparently Unicode implementation in the chat log there. You should be able to see it.
Okay, and now if you go codemarcocantu.com and follow Marco Cantu Delphi section demos, there is actually a CodeRage folder with the VCL migration demos. I see it, I'm browsing it right now. I can actually copy the link in the question window, I guess.
Where's the download link for Async Pro for XE7? Is that on SourceForge or Roman's blog? Or
it's on SourceForge. It's the new project. You can either follow. I blogged the links, and also Roman Kassenbaum blogged the links a couple of weeks ago.
That's what I thought.
Oh, interesting. I can answer a question. Oh, a chat window.
Yeah, paste it in the chat window.
Throw it. Okay, this is a link to the. That's not the it's the Subversion repository. That's the web front end. You have to navigate through the main and get the specific URL for the if you want to import in Subversion. This is just a web browser to read the source code. Not ideal for downloading everything.
Okay.
But you can use Subversion and download rather than the entire repository, only a subsection like only this session or my CodeRage. There's currently only this one. I'm uploading the others later on.
And here's a comment says, thanks for contributing to keep the turbo power components up to date. Which that's actually a pretty big deal as far as VCL applications go, is that all the...
It is. It's a significant set of components. I think in the past we were more passive, just hoping that things will catch up. Now we are starting to get a little more active in trying to help and push communities or developers to update some of these open source repositories.